aka Miss WC Reader, and welcome back to my channel. So, I read Keke Palmer's Master of Me. Read it, not just watched the interviews, although she did do some interesting interviews promoting it. Now, when I first heard about this book, I heard it was a self-help book. And I'm like, I'm not really interested in a self-help book, especially because at the time it was announced, Keke was going through a lot of stuff in her personal life. So everybody was just kind of like, how's she gonna give you self-help advice and her life is in shambles? Then recently they were promoting it as a memoir, as she was doing all the different talk shows and stuff. And I actually sat and watched her Club Shay Shay interview. Really great interview, actually, if you haven't gotten a chance to watch it yet. Now, I know how some of us feel about Shannon Sharp. Trust me, he's not my favorite either, but I can't deny this has been the year of Club Shay Shay. And there's been multiple times where I've been tuned in depending on who the guest is. Like, we watch and see these viral moments, but I don't just like to watch the snippets. I like to get the full picture and listen to the full interview. And hers was very, very good. And that's just a testament to Keke. She knows how to command attention. She even talks about it in her book, like about how she knows how to be outgoing. And people expect one thing of her because they see that she has such an outgoing personality, and they really don't know the real her. And I think that's important for us to remember as well, especially with all the discourse I see recently. There's a lot of womb watching online and a lot of people who are just talking about her and Halle Bailey and Sky Jackson, and they're all trying to put them in the same box and talk about how they shouldn't have got with this partner, they shouldn't have these kids. And I'm like, at the end of the day, y'all don't know these people. She even mentions Halle in the book, and in regards to announcing her pregnancy, and how she wanted to keep that close to her and enjoy the moment. And there's so many risks with being pregnant as well. You don't want to just tell everybody. But people are trying to put them all in the same box, and I'm like, Keke and Halle are different ages, they have different careers, they have different types of men. Just because you don't think that a man is right for them doesn't mean you know the full story. As far as we've seen, DDG has not been abusive to Halle. We have not heard her talk about being abused at this time. Keke, we've seen the evidence, and she does touch on her relationship in here a little bit, where she talks about having a complicated relationship with the father of her child, but also them trying to work together to be the best parents that they can be to her son. And she talks about her relationship with her own parents, how it wasn't always perfect, how at a younger age she did take on a lot of responsibilities for keeping her family afloat because her parents had to quit their jobs to make her career happen. And I know a lot of people heard her talking about that in interviews, and they just kind of took it and ran with it. I will say this book is not really a memoir. She doesn't go into a ton of detail about certain things, including like some traumatic instances that she mentions briefly. So I wouldn't just like take the things she's saying about it and just like run with a narrative, because she really doesn't expand upon it enough to do so. I found like her stories helpful to just get some more insight to her as a person. The self-help aspects of the book just kind of threw me off a little bit. I liked it best when Keke was talking about things like how she feels about the industry, for example. She talks about Black stories, and I just really related to what she was saying there about how there's room for a variety of Black stories. Like, you can have the Jordan Peeles and the Tyler Perrys, which a lot of people have stuff to say about Tyler Perry. I haven't watched the Tyler Perry movie in over a decade at this point. I have not watched any of the latest ones, but I know so many people who have ran to watch the latest ones. Y'all are keeping the lights on for him. Some people clearly enjoyed, if not just to watch it to see that it's a hot mess. I personally have not watched anything Tyler Perry in a long time, If you want to avoid it, it's very easy to avoid. And I don't think Jordan Peele should be held as the end-all be-all when it comes to black horror and black cinema in general. Especially when we get into the whole proximity to whiteness. Jordan Peele is a biracial man married to a white woman. And she does talk about colorism a little bit in here and how that also affects your standing in the industry and how often people with more proximity are put on a pedestal. And it's like she's done so much stuff in her career, but people still wanted to compare her to Zendaya because they felt like, well, Zendaya's doing this and Zendaya's doing that. They had two completely different paths, and I think people need to recognize Keke has accomplished a lot. There's things she's accomplished that Zendaya has never accomplished. And so she kind of gives herself some credit here for the stuff that she's done and talks about how things like that can steal your joy from you. I also liked how she spoke about being her own boss and the black creatives who have inspired her on her own creative journey. She's created opportunities for herself through production, not only in TV but also online. She's really been able to take like what she earned and just her following that she has online and turn it into different opportunities for her, which I admire. I think that's pretty cool. Now, like the self-help aspect of this book, it did have some personal assessments and questions. I personally found that stuff to be unneeded, and I prefer when she leaned more into her experiences and her thought on the industry, stories about who she's worked with. I also thought it was interesting, and I think it was just because maybe the publisher's trying to avoid a potential defamation lawsuit. Certain stories she talks about, she mentions people by name. Certain ones she does not, but if you've been following her career, you know exactly who she's talking about. And interestingly enough, like when she's talked about it in interviews recently, she's mentioned the names. So, like I said, I think that was just done to avoid any potential defamation lawsuits. But again, if you have followed her for a while, if you watch the interviews, you kind of know who she's talking about. For me, this book felt more like an extension of her podcast, Baby, This is Keke Palmer, which I don't watch religiously, but I've watched plenty of episodes. I pick and choose to watch when I see it on my YouTube feed, depending on who she's talking to or what the topic is about, because I do find her to be just such an engaging interviewer, and I like hearing her and the guest thoughts on a variety of topics. So if you wanted to check out Master of Me, I'd say if you already watched her podcast, if you've already watched her interviews, you basically already know everything that's going to be on here. There's some stuff in here that was just a little bit repetitive, and all the big juicy tea you're looking for if you were looking for this to be a memoir, it's already been talked about on interviews and stuff. She doesn't go into any more detail than what we already learned in those interviews. And there's some stuff that she does briefly mention that I think in an actual memoir in the future would be interesting to hear her expand upon. Overall, it was an interesting because Keke is always interesting. She always knows how to bring the entertainment, and I've gotten some new insight to her recently. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section down below. Are you a Keke fan? If you like this video, make sure and hit that like button. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!